Okay, let's have a look at Proteus for operators. This is a low fidelity flow and an early concept design. So we've got a couple examples here for pre-appraisal and select phase examples. So this would be our landing screen. It's a summary page of our pre-appraisal portfolio. If we look in our left-hand menu, we have all the different phases of our project: pre-appraise, appraise, select, define, execute, and handover. But at the moment, we're in the pre-appraise section, and this is our portfolio with some key metrics up here and some of the information we want to know about each of our opportunities. So let's go ahead and initiate a project. If I click on this button, I can create a new pre-appraisal project, or I can do that from a template. So I'm going to create a new one, and I get this setup modal. I have a number of different input fields, drop downs, and text boxes here. I can add the project title, project reference, the project lead and appraisal engineer from a drop down, the project director, the project type, a bit of information about the location and joint venture partners. I also have to add this opportunity statement, which is a bit of a sort of one-liner to put in front of a decision review board that lets them know at initiation what the opportunity is very quickly. And then I have this cost estimate here too. So let's just go ahead and populate some of those. I've added a joint venture partner here. I've put my opportunity statement in. Now, one thing to note here is that this cost estimation to initiation gate is a rough estimate that we use, and then applying norms, we can create a work breakdown structure and some of the key information to get our project kicked off. Allocate one or two resources, our appraisal engineer and our project lead, allocate some activities and time just from a generic template, all based on this cost estimation to initiation gate. So we'll go ahead and we'll create our pre-appraisal project. So the first thing we see is our dashboard, and this is just some of the key metrics and information for our project: our progress, our budget, our end date, some traffic lights for assurance and deliverables. And we have a number of different widgets here as well for budget, schedule, the man-day burn. I get an idea of the status and the progress on my assurance activities, so things like hazards and effects management process, technical assurance, value assurance, opportunity framing, and where I am with my decision gate as well. And same for deliverables. So there will be a number of mandatory deliverables for each phase of the project, and these are captured here, and the status and progress captured as well. So let's imagine the elapse of some time, and the project progresses along. Now, this information, as I say, these are low fidelity designs, so not all of this information stacks up, but you get the idea of what the dashboard might look like after some time has elapsed. So we'll go ahead and we'll use our project controls. The first thing to note here in our project controls is we have a work breakdown structure over here, which is the one that was pre-populated based on our pre-appraisal budget. So it just puts in some generic activities and some mandatory activities and assurance reviews that are required for a project, and our roll-up budget is just what we specified in our setup modal. We get some key metrics here: cost performance index, we get our planned, earned at completion and variance at completion on cost. We get the same chart that we saw on the dashboard, and we get some additional information here too in terms of the cost breakdown if we want to track that as our project progresses. Similarly, we can do the same with schedule, and we can track some of the key metrics and information on our schedule as the project progresses. Again, we have our work breakdown structure here. It's very light. It's just populated for pre-appraise with those generic activities, and we can see some deliverables in there too. And we get a Gantt chart here as well, which we can shuffle around and move as well. So similarly, we also have this resources tab. Let's just see our man-hour burn if we're factoring in the time right in or factoring in the project progress. And we've allocated a number of resources here too. So at this point, we could go to the data tab, and that would just give us a lot of the data that sits behind all of these tabs here. But what we'll do is we see we have an activity planned here in our appraisal phase to update the level 0 work breakdown structure and plan. So that's cost and planning essentially. That'll feed into our economics along with reservoir profiles and then towards our gate activities. And the main activity we have at this stage as well is an appraisal study, some sort of study that lets us flesh out what that work breakdown structure and plan are going to look like. So let's go into plans and costs for the next phase. And here we have that work breakdown structure. Now we're thinking forward here to the appraisal phase, the next phase, and we want to start to flesh this out. So we've done some study work, and we're going to start adding here. So I can go ahead and add a line item to appraise. I'm going to add a title, just general project management activities, and I'm going to update my work breakdown structure. And I'll add a child activity there as well. So I'm going to create a project assurance plan. And actually I can do that within Proteus. But I'm going to add the activity to create a project assurance plan, update my work breakdown structure, and I'm going to add a deliverable there too. I click add down here to add a new deliverable. I get a grabber here for shuffling the deliverables that I add, sequential numbering. I can enter text here, so I'm going to put in here project assurance plan. I can change the number of units, say I wanted 10 of those, or it might be more useful for drawings, things like that. I can use the clone functionality here to create copies. Again, useful if I'm creating multiple deliverables with all very similar content. I can delete them here, and then also here I can link that deliverable to the project assurance plan. So I'm going to link the project assurance plan to the project assurance plan, but this might be a study report or any mandatory deliverable or assurance task that I want to be able to link my WBS and my project assurance plan, so I can basically track those project assurance activities, whether they be mandatory deliverables or tasks, as I say. So let's go ahead and link that. And I'll just update my work breakdown structure. At this point, I'm going to add some man hours to this activity as well, because I need some resource to do this, and I want that reflected in any costs that I report in my cost and planning for the next phase. So let's add a resource. I'm just going to add a project manager to do that task. It's an internal rate, and number of units, it's going to take maybe a day, and it's factored in the cost for me. I can just add that here. It stacks up. I could add more resources to this CTR. But you can see that's also reflected over on the left hand side as well. Let's now imagine that we flesh out this work breakdown structure in far more detail than we have at the moment. We're going to flesh out what's happening in the appraisal phase. We have this activity here, update level 0, WBS and plan, and that's what we're doing. So let's imagine I flesh that out with a lot more detail. You can see that I've now created a whole series of activities, and I've gone all the way down to close out. The execution defined. I've even given a little bit more detail on the select phase.
Let's have a look at the organisation around the project.
So I have an organogram builder here. It's been pre-populated with some of the key players, my project lead, a designated project manager, and an appraisal engineer. I gave those details at the setup. But I'm going to flesh out that organogram a bit more. So let's go ahead and add a resource. I pick from the drop-down list. I'm going to add this guy, Rick Watt, as my engineering lead. Add it automatically knows that Rick is a surface engineer and adds him as my engineering lead. And you can imagine how in the same way I can build up quite a lot of structure around my organisation. You can see I've built up quite a significant organogram for this particular project. And I can use my
zoom slider here to just get a bit more perspective on that.
At this point, let's go ahead and look at the project assurance plan. So when I go in here, I'm presented with project assurance activities for all phases of the project, or I can look at it on a phase basis. So here for all, and then here for phase. Now these are the mandatory deliverables for each phase, and you can see there's a number of deliverables that I have to account for when I go forward to decision gate. I have a number of different little action buttons on each deliverable as well. Let's have a look at those. As we did before, I can link them to my work breakdown structure so that I can track where these deliverables are through my project assurance tab. If I link them to the work breakdown structure, then I can get an idea of the status. And it also ensures that I've planned for them as well. I can upload files, so I could upload a study report or whatever it might be that supports this. So Proteus is allowing the project manager to do their job effectively, but it's not a place to generate all these deliverables. It's a place to capture them and to capture status. Similarly, I could add to the work breakdown structure, so where I haven't already linked it, I can go ahead and add that to my work breakdown structure, and that would be populated as a line item in the appraise phase of my work breakdown structure. Here I have the opportunity to upload a file, and this button here is more about going to a different area in Proteus. So whilst mostly I'm uploading supporting documentations, sometimes I can just jump to a different part of Proteus to see what I need. So for instance, my integrated project plan, that's been done in my plans and costs for the next phase section along with the cost estimate. So let's have a look at some of these tabs. I have my mandatory deliverables. My mandatory assurance activities would be value assurance, technical assurance. I might be looking at the hazards and effects management process. I might do some opportunity framing. And then I have the gate itself, which I have to account for. And again, I can link those to my work breakdown structure, and I can upload documentation to support that they've been completed. So what I'd be looking for at any given phase would be all greens here, basically. It lets me know that I've completed my mandatory assurance activities and generated the mandatory deliverables as well. And then I can add one or two custom ones as well at this point. So I've just picked from a drop down. I've added a few different workshops here, for instance. If I look at that on a phase basis, well, I'm in the pre-appraise phase, so I see the pre-appraise information. I get the same information that I had on the project-wide one, but I also then can see the due date, the status, and the progress as well here. And I can see that I haven't added the OPEX estimate to my work breakdown structure, so I could add that here as well. Let's go back into the project view. Now, at this point, I'll go ahead and upload my pre-appraise study. I can see that's one of the only things that remains to do on this pre-appraisal step. So I go ahead, upload that, click my study report, and add that. I get an affirmation up here to let me know it's been added. And I'm ready now to start generating my gate note. I can see that's the only activity I still need to do. And I have a go-to link here that will take me directly to the gate note, or I can go to the gate note from the tab menu up here. So here I am in the gate note, and I'm going to generate my gate note internally in Proteus. The first step is just to review the opportunity details. So these are the ones that I populated in that setup modal, and I just get a chance to check them over, make sure everything's right, and check my opportunity statement is what I want to present to the decision review board. Here I'll just progress to the next step. So I have some decision summary information. I'm going to populate an executive summary, something about the main decisions that are required, and the strategic and financial fit. I also have a scroll spy over here to help me quickly navigate through these various accordions, and I can expand and collapse them all too. So the third step is just value proposition and economics. So I can put in some narrative around that, and I can update some of the economic information that I've pulled from my economics report or case. So it's just a manual population here of some of the key information that the decision review board are going to be interested in, and I can just put them into the various fields. You can see I've left a lot of them sparse, and it might be that that's the case. It might be that you're populating everything. I can also add sensitivity cases here as well. Now a little bit about project management. So I'm going to add a little bit of a project description, some information on the schedule to supplement my cost and plan for next phase, and some budget information as well. Risks, opportunities, and alternatives speaks for itself. I'm just going to fill out those various sections. And finally, some additional information that I might or might not be interested in populating. I can also add attachments here, so I can pull documents, deliverables from my project assurance plan. Some of them are mandatory, for instance, that the review board want to see regardless, and then I can go ahead and add one or two of my own. So I'm going to add a project plan, cost estimate, economics case. I might have uploaded the economics case for the plan and the estimate, and they would be coming from my plans and costs for next phase information here. So just as well I added them. And I'll go to the next step. In summary, I can see that I've completed all of these steps in creating a gate note, and I could go ahead and share that gate note. I get a bit of a gatekeeper modal here just to prevent me from sending this too readily. And I'm just double check. This is going to go to a decision review board, which are going to be some people that are quite high up in the organisation, and I want to be sure that everything's ready to go. I click OK, I get an affirmation up here, and I've created and shared my gate note. So let's skip the appraisal phase and imagine we're now in the select phase. I'll just have a very quick look at what that might look like. So here I'm in my select portfolio. You can see that on the left hand side here. And I'm going to go into this one that I've created because I've progressed the project to this point. My dashboard now has a lot more rich information. Some of the assurance and deliverables are a lot more detailed. There's a lot more required at this phase of the project. But I can see how things are tracking along, and things are going not too badly. I have some traffic lights as well to help me see where my assurance and deliverable activities are. If I go into my project controls, again, I just get far more detail here. I built up my cost and plans for the next phase at the appraisal stage, and that's what I'm seeing reflected here in my project controls, and I'm able to track how I'm doing, where things are in terms of budget, in terms of schedule and plan, and also in terms of resources. Now, really, the decision gate are going to want factored into the cost and plans for the next phase a more detailed work breakdown structure. So again, I can start to update that here, and I would just add line items as before. So I'm just going into that work breakdown structure, and you can see it's getting richer and richer in detail. The pre-appraise and appraise phases are now behind me, so they're automatically collapsed over here. And I can start to add new activities. I can start to flesh out the define phase, for instance, at this point, and carry that forward to a decision gate in terms of cost and plan that goes into my gate note. And I would just progress through this phase, same as I did for the pre-appraisal one. Obviously, the layers of detail are now starting to build up, and I'm starting to work towards really defining what those execution costs are going to be and giving the decision review board as much information as they require to progress things.
At this point, I could also go to the Update Schedule tab and drag and drop Gantt chart items, start to start, finish to finish, finish to start to finish.